Well, thank you for this.
Well, it's
When
my
I
pleasure.
when I got assigned this and I started your book, it was funny because, Shirley and I didn't snap, and I was reading the book and then it hit me, oh my God, this is about Shirley Jackson.
Yeah.
And I just, in all my years, I had never, read her work. And it wasn't until last year, I'm an 8th grade English teacher,
Mhm.
I read The Lottery. So
Mhm.
that as I'm reading your book, I loved, I would read and then stop and look things up. And so it was interesting to, figure out like the factual information and then the things that you kind of added in. And then when I
Yeah.
read the acknowledgments and saw how you went about all that, I just was amazed.
Oh, Patricia, thank you so much. I have to say, I that kind of line of what is fiction and what is not fiction in the book was really, that was the sort of scary, thriller part for me. Exactly how to manage that and stay in a zone that felt that it felt as if it had moral integrity.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to mess around with real people in a way that seems as if it's not um, fair to them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I loved that you stuck with pretty much factual information throughout. So I loved that aspect of it all. And then just getting to learn more about her. I think that's what I liked about your book too, is it really piqued my curiosity to want to learn more about Shirley Jackson herself.
Oh, that's great. That's really great.
So, okay, so I wanted to say all that. I'll go ahead and, sorry, my computer's being absolutely.
Oh, well, we live in this world now that we have to say, that's okay. Whatever it is, it's okay.
Oh, and of course, I'm still trying to get my nerves out. It's funny because I'm an online teacher, but yet when I get on video conferences, I still have a little bit of like, oh.
It's funny because I find this so much easier than the traditional, going from place to place and,
I'm in, but right now I don't. It's really super bright behind me, and I'm kind of like, what's going on? Okay, here we go. So let's see here. Okay. So I wanted to know, because reading the acknowledgments and what you had to say, how you were inspired by the story of, and of course my mind's gonna blank, Paula.
Oh, well then, yes.
Was there anything else that inspired the writing of this book?
Oh, so outside of Shirley Jackson's life. So it's interesting. I was talking to a friend of mine, another writer, just a couple of days ago, and this is my 3rd book. And she said, you have only written about obsession. That's your subject matter. And I was sort of shocked by it. And I was also shocked by how immediately I knew that she was right. So I had written about sibling relationships in a nonfiction book when I was quite young. And then I wrote a novel about an adoption that doesn't work out, and about this sort of obsessive relationship between the mother who thinks she's failing with the child and the child. And then this book, which is really, for me, very mostly about Rose. I mean, it's really, the book is seen, this Shirley is seen through Rose's eyes, and Shirley is the person who imagines the Shirley Jackson story of the book. So in a way, that kind of I think is my sweet spot.
Oh yeah, I definitely saw it. I think that's why, reading the book, I don't know, I just loved Rose.
Yeah.
And I loved, you know, and I totally identified with her need, like you said, for that mentor, for that, that she sought from Shirley. And saddened that you didn't really get that from the movie.
So that was really interesting and shocking to me. And yet, I mean, I had read the script and I had talked with the screenwriter a number of times, and yet seeing it, it was still shocking to me. But I kind of love it because I do think that there is a quality of there is a quality in admiration, which is, you know, if not erotic, it has this kind of charge. Like you really, you know, you think about like the people that you know, your friends when you were 11 years old, or your, you know, like, or like the first person you ever fell in love with. Like there is this slightly like all over the bend quality to the way that we admire, like that we fall in love with and want to be and own in a certain way, certain kinds of people that we love. And so they took it in a different direction, and yet it felt very valid to me in terms of who I understand Rose to be. Do you know?
Yeah.
You know, so it's a surprise when you see it. And every time I've seen the movie, I am again surprised and yet sort of thrilled by it.
Yeah,
because yeah.
It did take, in the movie, it did take their relationship a little bit longer to bloom. I did definitely like what they did with that scene where Rose goes, you know, when she catches Fred and then goes, and it was Shirley that comes to her. I did like that aspect of the, I think I even might have.
Yeah, no, I really like that as well. And in fact, you know, I had this, you know how you have an idea, like I knew what the next scene was. So even though Stanley, like, actually, the question of who drove in their family, in the real family, was kind of an issue. I had to make a decision about, because they each drive in the book, and that's not technically true, you know. So I kind of, that was a place where I fudged truth, you know. And I really wanted Rose to be kicked out of the house, but I really liked, you know, I mean, there is this kind of luxury efficient film because it has to do the same work, it has to do it fast. So, you know, 90 minutes is very different from 260 pages, and it just, you know, so what they did was efficient.
Oh yeah.
I
Because there's so much you can do.
Yeah.
In a movie that you,
I love the movie as a work of art in and of itself. So I just feel this kind of wonderful feeling about, so, you know, Shirley, the lottery is based on, you know, corn myths of, you know, ancient corn ritual, you know, harvest rituals. And she was plowing the past and really responding to it artistically, and her work moved me so much, and I felt this need to respond to it so much. And then having the filmmakers come in, and the way that the screenplay and then the directors and the actors and the music and the camera work, I mean, the magic of it was just, it just made me feel as if, not as if I had responded to Shirley, but as if I had sort of become part of this line of people who are, you know, all working an idea or responding to each other. And it's a very beautiful feeling to feel that something artistic that you've done has become part of a continuum of art.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your love of her work, and then it just so on and so forth. And I guess that kind of leads me to my next question. Let's see. Let me make sure. So I guess, like, how much of the process were you involved? I know you mentioned a little while ago that, you know, speaking with the screenwriter and everything. And I know, like, there's differences, you know, between, like, how much the author actually participates in the process. So
yeah. So I talked to Sarah Gubbins, the screenwriter, I don't know, maybe 4 times, I think, but she had a really clear idea very early on, so clear that I think at some point, I think she said that she had actually written her own novella of the novel, of her novel. So she took my book, and the idea, I think the idea that was really important for her was the idea of Rose as the viewer of the story, and the idea of this person coming to stay, and that being a way you can look at Jackson and her life and her art and her agoraphobia and her marriage and think about all those things. So we didn't really have, I certainly had no, I gave no guidance. I think at one point she did call me and say, something about, and it may have been, I hesitate to even say this because I'm not going to remember this accurately, but I think it was about Hangs a Man, and it was about the question of whether the main character in Hangs a Man has multiple personalities or is in love with another woman. And I had been in Shirley's journals, and I had read her at least the innermost thoughts that she was willing to save for posterity. And it was pretty clear to me that her fantasies were such as they were. She was pretty straight-laced in her own being, were not about women. And so I said that to Sarah, but I don't know, again, I thought it was cool what she did.
yeah.
So that's a long answer to a very simple question. Yeah. I got to go up and see the filming for a night, and I actually I saw the scene where she's pouring the wine glass at the dean's house party, and I just did not understand filmmaking. I mean, I really don't understand it, but I think I was there for 4 hours, and just that was one maybe minute and a half scene over and over and over, different camera angles, different takes of different camera angles, and coming closer and closer in, and watching Elisabeth Moss, like she didn't waste her face, that intense emotion, until the camera was really close, and stuff. And I've never really thought about it. For me, it was just the most incredible experience. So,
and then to see it all together, and
which I went into New York last, I think it was like early November last year, and sat in a sunny office with my agent and watched the film, and just like, what? It was like, wow, it's so incredible. And at the end, we were both just sitting there in stunned silence. And the person who had been running the film came running in. I think he thought we were sitting there going like, and I was just, oh my God, it's so
like,
wonderful.
Yeah. And I think they did great casting for Shirley, Elisabeth Moss. Like, and it's funny because I had seen The Invisible Man, and then watching her in that, and I was like, oh my God, like she really did an amazing job.
Yes.
Like, emulating Shirley Jack. Like I was like she did so good in that role that I was just like, whoa, she's like, sitting here, I'm like, I can't think of any actress like that could be Shirley Jackson. Like now,
no, she owns her now. Yeah, no, there was so there was a story that Josephine Decker told about how when they were doing the warm-ups, in the first couple days when they were on set, and and there were these like very movement-oriented exercises, and at some point Elisabeth Moss says, "I just don't think Shirley would move." Um, and it's absolutely brilliant, and it's absolutely true, and the funny thing of and then Elisabeth Moss said, well, I'm just lazy, I didn't want to do it. She's joking, but it was really it was really a very intensely moving inhabiting of a part.
Oh yeah.
And I felt that for Stuhlbarg, Michael Stuhlbarg as well. I mean, Rose and Fred are not real, so it's different, but the Rose of their imagination was just so absorbing to watch. I mean, she was almost, you just I couldn't really take my eyes off her. She was so incredible,
Oh yeah. I think it was a great cast.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's amazing to see when the book comes to life.
Yeah. And really not just comes to life, but kind of has this transcendent experience, it's not just the book that I wrote, it's this, it's, and I love the book I wrote, but there's also this kind of incredible experience of not just seeing the characters inhabit these roles, but then this storyline starts to furl out and feel, it was just, it just feels like such an honor to have been part of it.
Which goes into my next question. Did you, feel like when, are you contacted when, they decide, oh, we're gonna turn this into a film? How was that moment for you, even still now?
Well, it's funny because it actually, they optioned it very early. I mean, I think it was before publication, it might have been at publication, but it was very early in the process. And the book came out in 2014, so 6 years ago. So, so over the years, there was all this time that, there was this option and they kept renewing it and they kept renewing it. And, but everybody always says like, well, one in a, I don't even know what the numbers are. One in a bazillion books gets optioned, and then one in a bazillion options becomes a film. And nobody ever really believed that this was going to happen. And then when it did happen, it happened so fast that it is just so, I got a call in May, and that they were going to close the next week, and that it was really going to happen, and they had all the actors, and they had everything going on, and they started filming at the beginning of August. They were done filming at the end of August, and then I think Josephine took quite some time to edit. And now that I see what editing is in this case, I really understand it. And then, in November, a year later, I'm in the city looking at the film. It's just, so it was a very long time of existing in a world that I think lots of writers exist in, which is, being optioned and knowing there's a script and seeing the script and hearing that, a rumor and then hearing another rumor and then not really ever quite believing that it's going to happen, and then it does. So it was, pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. Yeah, I mean, I keep saying to my friends, I wish this for you. I wish this happens for you. It's just such an incredible thing.
Well, and then I could, even for me, even though, but when I read the book and the movie, when I read the book, the movie was already out, but even reading the book, I'm such an avid reader, but I still, when a book that you really love is a movie, it's even nostalgic for me. So I can even imagine as
Well, it's like, I don't know. I mean, it's like having, one of your children, finding out that one of your children who is yours is also royalty or something, it's just like it's incredibly narcissistically satisfying, it just feels very good,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Got nothing else to say. It feels good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Let me see here. So I know you talked about obsession. So, you really loved Shirley Jackson, and like what that was the inspiration for the book. So I guess what was the the message that you wanted to get out there with writing Shirley? What was the theme, the takeaway that you wanted the readers to come away with? Like, I know for me, I have like this whole new appreciation and love for Shirley Jackson. That's for sure.
Yeah. So I think for me, the thing that I found so interesting about her was, because I went to grad school at Bennington, which is where they lived, and I discovered her while I had read We Have Always Lived in the Castle when I was a kid, and obviously I had read the latter high school, and I think when I went down to the Library of Congress and I started going through her journals and Stanley's journals and their writings and their early letters, the letters from when they were at Syracuse and they were 19 and 20 and 21 years old, and so smart and funny, smart and well-read and funny and kind of sexy and sharp, and then knowing from, both from the journals and also, from the, at the time there was one biography out and now there are two, and they're both really interesting in their ways. And then I interviewed, and that were, that knew the family as well, and thinking about how this marriage that begins with this great sort of charged connection ends up, 20 some years later being the source of distress and not the happiest of situations, and people with their kind of tragic experiences, and yet also believing that the connection between Shirley and Stanley was what made them both great as the thinkers and artists that they were. He as a literary critic and she as a novelist and a very funny essayist. So I think that for me, the thing I was looking at is how you can see in someone's beginning, in a relationship beginnings, that tells you where it will go. And I don't think so, but it was fun knowing that I was starting here in my own mind and ending there. So that was part of it. And then the other thing was thinking about my own self as a young person, really admiring other people and thinking that they understood how to be adults better than I did, and wanting, to kind of have their secrets. And then, as always is the case, realizing that they also had, their weak flanks as well, because everybody does. And it's always a shock to realize that other people are human, and so that was part of it as well.
Well, and I definitely got that, because I think why I'll say I loved it, because Rose, and Fred, when they came to Shirley, they and Stanley, they're newly married, she was pregnant, but she had she wanted, I guess, to have like a greater purpose, that you got that from Rose, like she, and and then going to Shirley and Stanley, and I, you know, there's so many dynamics of like Rose feeling that, like you said, you know, she's young, she may not know enough of the world, and so she Shirley and her writings and everything. And so I just love that dynamic though of how when Rose and Fred finally left, like Rose, I guess, had a little bit of contentment finally within herself.
In the book. Yes.
In the book. I mean, you
Yes.
didn't
Less so in the movie.
not so much in the movie, but I think what the movie really did was shine a light on, like you said, on Shirley and Stanley and their relationship and how they had this, it may not have been the greatest of marriage, but they had this this bond, you know, like they relied one on the other.
Yeah, and who's really to say what greatness in a marriage is? Like, I've been around for a while and seen a lot of marriages that were sort of surprising to me when they failed, you know, and then other marriages that have, you know, lasted and been very successful. And, you know, that question is always, it's just always been fascinating to me because I'm just really intrigued by the fact that some people make, you know, follow the rules really well, but you have no idea who they really are. And other people don't follow any rules. And it turns out maybe they're, you know, doing something smarter. So, yeah, so I've just always sort of been fascinated about that question. And I think Shirley and Stanley made each other. They made each other who were. So the idea that we look at them and we say, well, that's pretty crazy, you know, well, yeah, but you know, maybe you have to be crazy to do that kind of work, you know. So,
yeah. And when you look even at Shirley's history, she wasn't your, I guess I hate that word normal, but she wasn't the typical, and you know, what works for some just didn't. And I mean, she was a brilliant woman in her writings. And so definitely amazing. I haven't read or looked up anything that Stanley has, you know, written and whatnot. Definitely.
I wish I had. I don't have it here, but he has this one book that I just loved more than anything, and I think he talks about it in the novel about, you know, the question of why Iago does what he does, you know, why, you know, and you know, does he, you know, is it, you know, does he have a psychological problem? Is he a Machiavellian? Does, you know, like, you know, looking at it from the point of view of different literary theories, and I think there are maybe 11 essays in there about the different ways you can look at why Iago is such, you know, is bad, why he does this terrible thing to Othello. And, you know, it's just, and I don't know, it's just, he's really just brilliant as well. Though I don't think you know, what Shirley was doing is just, I don't know, she had her finger on a pulse that, I mean, hadn't even really started beating yet. I mean, I think part of the reason that we're all so taken with her right now is that she just identified a problem of what it is to be a person who lives in the world and doesn't kind of match, you know, which is everybody's problem in a certain way. And she was funny, and so it seemed less hurtful than, like, the anger is sort of buried under this sense of humor. But she had really tapped into something that I think women in particular, but women, you know, gay people in general, you know, just like there were racial things that she wrote about as well, that she just tapped into the humanness of people in a way that was, to say, fashion forward, you know.
She dressed uncomfortable in a way, and I think that's why, like, her, you know, The Lottery, I just reading that book after, even my students, we were all like, whoa.
I know.
It stuck with you because she challenges, you know, I guess the comfortableness that, you know, some people have with certain things, and kind of has you question it in a way that you're like,
Right.
oh,
Yeah.
maybe we have been wrong.
Yeah, but you know how somebody becomes an other just like that
Yeah.
story, you know, like Mrs. Delacroix, she's mom until she's chosen, and then she's just
Yeah, she's just somebody else.
we're going to kill so the corn will grow, you
Yeah.
know. And it's just like that's, you know, I mean, when you think about just so much that we are trying to tackle as a culture right now, the idea that Shirley was on to that for remarkable.
What's your favorite? Because, you know, you talked about, you mentioned, you know, being able to go, you went to the Library of Congress, you've read, you know, maybe some stuff that others might not know about. So like, what what's your favorite of
And
hers?
regular
And
people is a very wealthy family, the family of the town, the apocalypse, have the date of the apocalypse coming in August. Like, so they spend maybe, I don't even know, 6 or 8 weeks preparing for the apocalypse and picking who they're going to let come in and stay with them because of the things they have to do when, you know, when the end of days comes. And, you know, they do things like they burn all the books in their library to make room for umbrellas and tennis balls. And, you know, they're like stockpiling what's important to them. And they're really quite vile, funny people. And I love that book, and I don't think it gets enough attention. I've written about it a couple of times. I just, you know, it's the transition book to me between the between the early work and the books she's most known for, The Haunting of Hill House and We've Always Lived in the Castle. So
yeah.
so I'm just a fan. So
Well, and it's funny because, like I said, until last year, and I've seen, you know, the movie adaptation, The Haunting. I didn't know it was after The Haunting of Hill House.
right.
And now I'm opening the lottery in my class, reading Shirley and seeing the movie. Now I have a to-read list.
You know, something that would be fun to do, I mean, if you are, you know, depending on like how into it your class is, but so she has another short story called The Summer People, which I think, I'm not sure which collection it's easiest to find it in, but if you break down the lottery paragraph by paragraph and The Summer People paragraph by paragraph, you start to see that she really was technically incredibly skilled. She knew exactly when you had to place which items that you were going to use to pay off later. And I don't know, I do that with my graduate students sometimes. It's just a very cool exercise. So I don't know if 8th graders would want to do that, but if anybody wants to write, that is like that's a killer thing to do.
Great. I will have to write that down.
Yeah, The Summer People. So,
I've heard of that one.
yeah.
I haven't read it yet, but I will definitely look up that story and read over it because, you know, especially now with this, I'm like super excited to jump into the school year and read the lottery.
Oh, great. Oh, good. Oh, fun. That's great.
I guess, I'm not sure how, I didn't even ask at the beginning of this, like how much time you have or if we need.
I have a few more minutes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you know, so what's your, it seems, you know, Shirley Jackson, she wrote in the horror thriller mystery type genre. Is that your favorite?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, no, I wouldn't say, I mean, I love certain writers in this area and I'm less interested in others, but I will say I really like the way that thriller writers and then, people like Charles Dickens, the same thing, people who wrote for serial publication, this, I like this way that certain writers have of building tension into the ending of scenes so that you really want to go on to the next one. And so in the way that I love thriller, I think I love thriller in everything. So, and I think there should be more of it in fiction in general, if that makes sense. But I don't mean like killing people. I just mean that kind of arcing of tension. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I get what you mean. I like that when I'm reading a book and I just have that
Must go on.
Yeah, I like that. Like, oh my God, what's gonna happen next?
Yeah.
And then you're kind of sitting there thinking about, oh, what's gonna happen? Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So what then is like some of your favorite go-to books?
Oh. So, well, it stops giving back. I really love Beloved. I love Dickens. I recently just adored Julia Phillips' Disappearing Earth. Since the pandemic started, one of my kids is living with us, my adult kids is living with us, and we have been reading all of Agatha Christie. I mean, like we read like 47 books since that, and they're pretty fast. But,
yeah.
And we have a competition who can guess who did it. And neither of us she's really good. She's really good. So Iris Murdoch, I really love. I love cereal boxes. I'm a reader. I think you are too. I just read everything,
I'm the same. I try to read. My kids, I don't know if you can see behind me, this is our little, I just have books. They're of all levels. I have 4 kiddos. So wow. And that's like one thing, if my kids are like, oh mom, I want this book. Okay.
Got it. Yeah. We had a deal when we first got married that like we had no money. Doesn't matter. The only thing that you could spend money on was you were allowed to buy any book that you wanted. And my husband has said many times over the years, he had no idea. Like he had just no idea. Because I want a lot of books and I read them.
He looks at me and I'm like, you don't know this yet, but I'm slowly turning our house into a library. So just get ready.
That's great. So, it's been lovely to talk to you.
Yes, thank you so much for this. I won't thank you for your time. I'm like beyond excited.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. I love the piece you wrote and thank you. So it's been great.
Yes, thank you so much for this book. And now I even have a more extensive TBR list, but I'm so excited for that.
Good. That's as it should be. Always.